Item B on the agenda is approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion unless somebody would like to move some things around.
Move to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Agenda is approved. Item C is public comments, and we do have somebody who would like to speak tonight. When you come to the podium, please address please state your name and address for the record, please. And you'll have 6 minutes.
Gee, thanks.
Sure.
My name is Wendy Griffin. I live at 2835 Lake Elmo Avenue North. I'm president of the Lake Elmo Lake Association. We were here a couple months ago to tell you that we had submitted a grant into the 3M PFOs for the DNR for money. Well, they accepted our letter.
Great.
And so we're in the process of writing for that grant. And I'm here to ask the city if they would help us by supporting us with a letter of intent. And our intent in doing, if we do get the money, would be to do a full lake treatment for the lake to deal with Eurasian milfoil and curly pondweed. We had a meeting last night with Patrick from PLM, the gentleman that does our weed removal, and Meg Ratty from Bar Engineering. And we talked about some of the other invasives. We found out late last week that Lake Elmo now has zebra mussels in it. But, you know, we're keeping up with the dry lakes. And we talked about some of the other invasive species and found out that it's gonna be a 5-year plan out from now for zebra mussels, which Meg is working on with Valley Branch, bless their heart. And there's another invasive out there that can be dealt with through Washington Conservation District. So I'm just here asking for a letter of intent with the city saying that you support us in our efforts.
All right.
And one other comment. Thank you very much for Saturday night. What a fun evening. I'm so glad. There wasn't quite as many people there that I thought were going to be there that I would know, because I've been here my entire life, but there were enough. And I really do appreciate it. And I would sincerely hope that the city council would consider possibly, maybe, might bring back a street dance, because that's something that we had when I was younger and growing up. It would be fun to have some kind of a festival or something going on in Lake Elmo for the residents. I think there's enough people that live here now that might be interested in that. But you guys did a fabulous job. And
Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Oh, y'all have fun tonight.
All right. Item D on our agenda is approval of the minutes. Everybody have a chance to review? Everybody good? If so, I'll accept a motion for approval.
Motion to approve the minutes from the 8/14/25 City Council workshop.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Minutes are hereby approved. Tonight's consent agenda consists of approved payments and disbursements, adopt resolution for summary publication of ordinance related to trash haulers, accept donations for centennial celebration, approve position and job description for administrative assistant, public works, fire, approve AT&T temporary cell tower lease extension, approve 3M Priority 2 Trail Grant submittal, approve 2025 street and utility improvements pay request 3, approve Stillwater School District improvements pay request 1, approve Ebert's edition security reduction, approve Wildflower 4th edition security release, Royal Golf 3rd edition security reduction, 2025 mill and overlay accept bids and award, The 2025 street and utility improvements, call for final assessment hearing. Number 14, call for final assessment hearing for Stillwater Area School District utility improvements. And that's it for our consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda this evening.
Motion to approve the consent as written.
Support.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda is approved. Our regular agenda, the first item is accept feasibility report and order public hearing for 2026 street and utility improvements.
I hope.
Working on it.
Here we go. We're good. However, we're a couple slides in. Okay.
There you go.
Sorry for the delay. Yes, Mayor and Council, I'm with you tonight, or before you tonight with an item to receive the feasibility reports and call a public improvement hearing for the 2026 street utility improvements. Tonight, we're going to recap a number of items, but I'd like to really take a moment to discuss the recommendations of the report and the costs associated with the project. So to refresh everybody, the project is in the Lake Elmo Heights and Eagle Creek Point Estates area of town, just off of Inwood Avenue there. Tonight's, the schedule is as presented here. Tonight, we're presenting the feasibility report and calling for a hearing on the improvement. If council moves this forward, I'll be back before you in October to conduct that public improvement hearing and look for direction on moving forward with the project. Okay, so what did we find out? Pretty good news, actually. The geotechnical investigation supports a pavement reclaim of existing roadways in the project area. This is identical to many of the similar past projects, including the 2025 project that we're finishing up right now. So we want to reconstruct the streets to more or less existing grade and width, matching geometrics, making minor adjustments as necessary for drainage improvements. Installation of B418 concrete curb and gutter. I didn't have that stated explicitly, but I did want to bring that up. Posting of no parking per city policy. In this case, it's just around those cul-de-sac bulbs in the neighborhood. A replacement of storm sewer as necessary, as well as grading out any sort of ditches, clearing ends, making sure the systems work. The neighborhood is served by existing public water main that was installed approximately 20 years ago. It's anticipated there's many decades of life left in the system, and no improvements are proposed at this time to the water main system. The streets, or the project areas, are outside of the existing MUSA boundary, and there's no proposed extension of sanitary sewer into the neighborhood at this time. This is kind of it's a little hard to see, just kind of a recap. I mean, I'll draw attention to the orange dots. Those are storm sewer improvement areas. Like I said, the water main exists, and we're proposing curb throughout the entire neighborhood. These are larger lots with significant frontage. Again, the parking restrictions, we're just proposing to cul-de-sac bulbs. Per city policy, the width of the streets is adequate so that we don't need to restrict one side or at all. So in our 2026 capital improvement plan budget, we had a little over 2.7 million estimated. The current project estimate all in is just under $2.4 million. Of that, we're estimating $1,665,000 to be paid by the city and $727,000 to be assessed to benefiting properties. There's a kind of a breakdown below listed. You can see, I want to draw attention to the Lake Elmo. I've got two Lake Elmo Heights neighborhoods indicated here, and that was how it was written in the report. While in the same plat, they're not contiguous streets. So we did separate out the Insdale Avenue cul-de-sac with access off of Stillwater Boulevard. That cul-de-sac, you'll notice the assessments are quite a bit less per unit. And that's just a matter of those lots actually being a little bit smaller and having a greater number of units on the cul-de-sac. Otherwise, these assessments are generally in line with what we've seen for recent past projects. There's a map to illustrate that. And like I just said, you can see the two cul-de-sacs on the top of the page here. The Eagle Creek Point Estates cul-de-sac, which is actually Old Avenue, has 4 properties fronting it. There is a side driveway on one property that's actually front Stillwater Boulevard. That was that one assessment that was half of the original, or half of the folks that front the cul-de-sac. The Lake Elmo Heights neighborhood, the larger of the areas, is accessed off of Inwood Avenue by 26th and 27th Avenues. So tonight I'm asking council to consider approving a resolution receiving the feasibility report and calling for a public hearing for the 2026 street and utility improvements.
Questions for Mr. Stanley? Councilmember Pragmas?
So it looks like on August 13th, you had a neighborhood meeting. Can you explain how that meeting went, if there was any feedback about that?
Absolutely, thank you for the question. It was actually the week after, I think it was the 19th, we kind of lost a week there schedule-wise, but it was fairly well attended. I'd say we had 35 to 40 folks show up, and it was informational. We didn't talk about, at that point, we didn't have the feasibility report to a point where we were ready to share preliminary assessments, for instance, which is.
And did you have people from each neighborhood attend as well?
Yep.
Cool.
We did, yep. So it was informational. It was, people were generally happy to hear that the streets are being done. There was some discussion about concrete curb and gutter and the benefit, which I went through everything, why it's proposed, why it's a city standard, and I think most folks accepted in the end that it is the best strategy to go, but it was, I think it was generally appreciated, the fact that we had this public meeting at that time to provide some information in advance of the next public meeting we're having, which is going to be between now and the improvement hearing.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember
There's a
Hearn?
question with the financial side of it. So, and maybe maybe this is how it works, but I see like at the bottom of the 2026 street improvements document, it says that the project proposed to be paid from a combination of special assessments, general funds, and issuance of bonds. A little higher up in the document, it just says the remaining 70% after the 30% special assessment is gonna be paid through the city general fund. And maybe that's just how, maybe there's a mistake there, I guess I was just wanting to clarify that.
Yeah, I'd review that with you. There could be some miswording there. I apologize
Okay.
for that. But yeah, generally and I can, if there are more specific questions about financing, I'm happy to step aside
Yeah.
and let Director Hadler hear you out. But generally, the project we estimated at 30% it's assessed.
Yep.
70% we're just calling city cost here in this, and how that is distributed is through a combination of, bonds or whatever other funds we have available.
Okay.
I would say.
And are we digging into the general funds for this project. We're not to that point. That's kind of the point of the funds that we're creating now, is to be able to draw from the infrastructure fund for these types of projects in the future.
Correct, if I may, Mayor, that is correct. So I would say the final funding is still to be determined, because we're sort of piecing together sort of this strategic plan and the levies and such. So we'll have a little bit more information, but yes, the goal of those infrastructure levies is to fund these capital projects, which have largely been funded only through bonds for a number of years.
Okay. And that's helpful. I guess as I was reading through that, because I know we've kind of used some of the general funds as we're looking at the budgets. I didn't know if maybe that was a strategy that was being implemented, but it doesn't sound like that was the intent.
No, and I would kind of go back to this, like, we've got a lot of work to do
Yep.
with our strategic planning, and so part of, I mean, it's certainly in my mind, and part of the strategic plan that I'm working on is talking about moving some of the general fund over to the infrastructure fund to sort of jumpstart that, but for this particular project, again, we'll look at it next year. In my mind, it's more about, like, what are the new levies that we'll be implementing? So for right now, it's tentatively at that 400,000 for next year, plus those franchise fees that we'll be receiving from the utility companies. And then for whatever projects are, for other projects, not this particular project, there will be MSA dollars available as well. So,
Okay, thank you. Thanks for clarifying.
you bet.
Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Jurgensen.
Yeah, this is another project. We have stormwater utility improvements in here, and we should be using our stormwater utility fund to pay for those improvements, because that's why we have the fund. We went through this on a project earlier this year where we had stormwater improvement funds. We used bonds to pay for them and not going to the utility. So I'm hoping that when we get to the end of the financing options for this, that the stormwater portions will come from the stormwater utility fund and not our infrastructure fund or our bonds.
That's something we can look at. Right now, we're here for the, accepting the feasibility report. But, yeah, duly noted for finance and public works streets to look at that. Anything else for Mr. Stanley? Okay. And I'm open to a motion.
Motion, I think I'm on the right one. Motion to approve resolution number 2025-059, receiving the feasibility report and calling hearing on improvement for the 2026 street and utility improvements.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Man, is it just
hot.
me or is it stuffy in here?
It's really hot.
Wow. All right. Number 2 is 2026 preliminary budget and levy brought forward from our workshop last week.
Oh, Julie, I broke it.
I had it open.
I tried to escape out of Nate's, and then the whole thing just went black.
Because we can't get it to appear in both places. Oh. For some
I
odd
realized,
reason, little
that's not what it
technical
was
difficulty
actually
there.
the minutes of, and I said that.
So there you
So
go.
then,
It was the 9-2,
Oh, yeah.
but that's what the minutes were.
Yeah.
okay. Well, this is our third, I think, maybe fourth discussion on the budget and levy for next year. So it'll be a little bit abbreviated. So after our discussions last week, we have landed on the current proposal. So I'll just kind of review this quick. Our For the general fund budget, we're looking at total tax revenues of 6.3 million, non-tax revenues of just over 2.2 million. For expenses, we are looking at a total expense of 8.8 million, which is about 11% increase over the prior year. Some some changes from 2025 that have added to that, or sort of caused those increases are added public works staff, the addition of 3 fire captains for half of the year next year, they'd be full year in 2027. And then we have a lot of projects on the books for next year. So we have a multi-year comprehensive planning process. We have some planning for the future sports complex and the 180 acres. We have the second year of our finance software implementation, a market wage analysis. We are still getting a handle on our city center expenses, so a lot of the maintenance and repairs. We have a team that goes through all of those, and then 2026 is, of course, an election year. So our goal tonight is to adopt the proposed levy. The proposed levy, as you may know, may be decreased at its final adoption. It may not be increased, so we're setting the high bar for the levy. So part of the levy that we've discussed a lot are the capital levies. The numbers shown are the ones that we have landed on after that discussion last week. It's decreased from the initial proposal. So we have, these are all, the capital levies are all new as of this year. We haven't done a lot of the separate capital levying for capital needs in the past. So infrastructure reserve is specifically for larger street reconstruction, the reclamation as well. City Center CIP is just getting a jump on those future repairs and replacement of this building. The Park CIP we brought down to 0. We have the ballpark fund, which is an interfund loan that is repaying the sewer fund, and that's for the purchase of the 76 acres for that sports complex. Our vehicle and equipment levy covers all of our vehicles and equipment in all general fund departments. Those are also funded by the utility funds. And then we have our street maintenance, which is all of the major street maintenance such as mill and overlays and chip seals. So a total of 1.78 million. So our total levy currently proposed is $11,497,785, an increase of just over 1.4 million, which is a 14% increase over 2025. The estimated local tax rate would be 29.57, which is a change of 2.73 percentage points. Our median value home increased just slightly this year. So we can see that the increased tax rate would have an impact of about $179, which is less than $15 per month on that median value home. Here's our tax rates relative to all other Washington County cities, so we're very much on the low side of those. And then this is in comparison to the cities in Washington County that are most similar to us in population. So we are 9th out of 10. And there's our proposed, the recommendation for the motion, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Finance Director Adler? Councilmember Hearn?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, and thanks for answering my questions. I know you sent me some of the CIP scenarios and with some of the questions I had as far as how it would impact the debt projections if we did change some of the numbers with the how much we're funding each year with it. And you sent some numbers, and I guess I think it would be helpful to maybe talk through those. The one you just sent me, it looks like, if I'm understanding it correct, that if we decrease that infrastructure reserve fund amount, 200,000 less than what we are planning this year? Is that what I'm seeing in the one that you sent?
Yep, that was the proposal that you had asked me to, the
And I know
scenario.
I'm the only one looking at this right now, but we had 200,000 less, that in 2038, our debt projection would be at about 23 million versus as proposed, I think our debt projection would be at 20 million in 2038. Am I seeing that right?
That sounds right. Now, and I would just remind you that we talked about that, these are just modeling at this point. And like this discussion is gonna change quite a bit as we go through that strategic planning process.
And thank you for doing this, like I guess, yeah, I'll wait for discussion, but I just want to make sure I was seeing that right, it would be, bring it down to $23 million of debt versus 20 million if we drop from $400,000 in that infrastructure reserve to 200,000 and then work our way up.
Correct. I would just also point out that the debt is just one of a number of factors that we should be looking at.
Correct.
So the total balance of that infrastructure fund over time is going to be really important
Sure.
for the long-term sustainability of our infrastructure and the city finances.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions at this time? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve resolution 2025-060, approving 2026 proposed general fund budget, 2026 proposed property tax levy, and setting the public hearing date for the 2026 budget and property tax levy for Tuesday, December 16th, reading is hard, 2025 at 7 PM.
There's a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Okay, Councilmember Jacobson.
I think that the presentation has been good, and we talked a little bit about comparison of tax rates with 10 cities closest in population and with all the cities in Washington County. However, if you look at other data, and you look at the amount of property taxes paid by a median valued home in those same communities, meaning half the houses pay more property taxes, half the houses pay less property taxes. For the 10 most comparable population, our property tax on our median valued home is higher than 6 of those and lower than 3. So we're much more to the high end than we are in the tax rate. And part of it is because we have very high values in Lake Elmo. If you go to all of the cities in Washington County, you'll find that 19 cities of the 27 have a lower property tax on a median home than Lake Elmo. And 5 had a higher tax. So we're on the high end of property tax, actual property taxes paid by median valued homes in the county, even though our tax rate is on the low end because of our high values. And so as you look at increasing the levy by 14, 11, whatever %, keep in mind that from the taxpayer's point of view, we are a fairly high tax city.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Hearn?
I guess I'll just kind of reiterate that, my feeling is with looking at those projections, again, my goal with this has been, I understand that the taxes do need to go up. I understand that we need to be able to support the spending and the growth of the city. I think if we can approach it in a slower approach versus, and again, I know, like you said, it's not ripping off the Band-Aid even, I know you feel that way, but I think this projection, again, I know it's a projection, it's not perfect, but neither is the other one then, right? So, but if that's the data that is presented in front of us, and I can see that in 12 to 13 years, we would improve from being at $60 million of debt, lower that down to $23 million of debt versus to $20 million of debt. I think that shows that slower approach could work just fine. And so this is where I still do feel strongly about if we can look at those funds, decreasing how much we're putting into those funds. Again, for if anyone's watching, we've had a lot of discussions about as far as the general fund. I don't think that there's a lot of things that can change there. if we want the tax rates to stay lower, if we want to think about how we're spending this, I think that's where we need to look. And I think this shows that that is an option, right? If this would have been presented, it would have showed that our debt continues to go up, or maybe our debt drops down to 50 million after 13 years. Maybe that's not feasible, but again, with what I'm looking at now, like, that looks like we are getting to a very good position from a debt perspective.
But that's only one point. If you look down, I don't remember how many pages I sent you,
Well,
but
okay, so what other perspectives then should we be looking at?
the fund balance and the infrastructure fund is gonna be really important,
Okay,
so the
so
initial.
why don't we present that? Can we get the information on that then? And that's what I've been looking for. And I guess my concern is, through these discussions, is I feel like maybe, I'm concerned. I was told that we're, as a city, that we potentially would have to work towards 50 to 60% tax rates. That's very concerning to me. And if that's what I'm being told, then I want to make sure that this is something that we're looking at and that we understand why we have to get there. If that truly is the case, we need the information. And again, a lot of this idea of starting the fund stemmed from the objective of lowering the debt to put us in a better financial position. And so, like, when I look at it, if there's other factors that we should be considering, like, I'm open to hear that, but that's the data that I've been looking for, that comparison. We had scenario one. Thank you for putting together the second scenario to show that delta of what happens if we change it. If there's other factors, then, I'm open to hearing that and understanding that, but I haven't been shown that information yet.
I believe that was in the CIP scenarios that I presented at the meeting last week, the 2 scenarios, as well as the one that I just emailed you. It shows the fund balance over time.
Yep.
Based on that infrastructure levy. So.
Okay.
And that, again, it's just one of the other data points.
So-
Many of the other data points that we'll be able to look at, again, we're gonna touch on all this on that, and this is kind of this importance of the strategic planning, because the city definitely needs a strategic financial plan moving forward that we can all kind of come together and decide.
So just to
So
make sure I'm
where we're headed.
understanding, is it the infrastructure fund balance
Correct.
page that you're looking at? So in
Correct.
scenario 2, 12 million, scenario 3, 8.5 million. So again, I don't know what does that mean? Does that mean if we say do what my recommendation was of instead of spending 2 million per year on roads, or 4 million per year that we have projected over the next 10 years, what if we decrease that to 3 million? Again, can we make these ends meet? I think it's gonna have to come from both ends. I understand that we do have to increase the revenues, and with all these scenarios, it's doing that. But it also shows if we think we can approach it in a slower way, yes, we're also gonna probably have to curb some spending as well. So I feel pretty strongly about, I think we need to approach this slower. Unless I can really be shown why only having 8.5 million in that infrastructure fund balance 13 years from now versus 12 million, unless I can be shown why that is gonna put this city in danger, I don't know why we can't do the slower approach.
These are all gonna be fabulous discussions when we
Yeah.
get further along in the strategic plan discussion.
So when will that be?
We're working on a timeline. I'm hoping to have sort of a touch point with the council later this year. I'm having to kind of build these models from scratch and lay out the discussions and stuff. And you will recall, we're in the middle of a software transition as well. So that's my goal.
Will we
but
be able to talk about it before December 16th?
Not to answer all of the questions that Councilmember Hearn has. I can give you, like, we've done some really rough, had some really rough discussions. Like during the CIP, I had mentioned what our fund balance is relative to our depreciation. We are working on this discussion with engineering about, like, how do we get a better feel, because depreciation doesn't necessarily represent what we have in today's dollars. It's what was given to us at the time of that those streets were built. And so to get a really, a better understanding of where we need to go, we kind of need a better idea of where we're at, and that's part of that process. So
Okay.
again, it's sort of, we can sort of, I can get us headed in the right direction, but some of these questions really need a lot more information before I
Sure.
can give good answers.
All right. Councilmember Holtz?
Well, and again, this is to set the hearing date and to propose an amount that we can reduce at that time. With that said, I appreciate, number one, that staff is putting this together, that you are answering questions, and I also appreciate that council is taking the time to discuss in-depth questions beforehand. I see many institutions and boards where that doesn't happen and it turns into mass chaos at these meetings, so thank you for doing that. My 2 cents would be on the premise of the rate of essentially savings. No matter what, you have to pay the piper. And whether you start the savings at a faster rate now, and then there's a smaller hit down the road for the projections that we cannot have for certainty what the exact cost will be in the year 2039. We cannot. It's gonna be projections. Or you do the approach of some neighboring communities where you don't, and then, as we've seen, there is a substantial one-time hit. And I don't want to see that for residents down the road. I don't. And the phrase is not correct about pulling out the Band-Aid. At this point, we are trying to wrap a wound and trying to determine how much wrapping is needed on that wound. Because these discussions didn't happen years ago. And it's not the fault of any specific individuals or any staff. Like, we just didn't have these conversations. We didn't have the institutional abilities. We didn't have enough staff on hand. The questions weren't being asked. I am glad we are having these discussions now so we can start to determine how much. I would prefer to do it in this way now to try to not have a substantial jump 5 years or 10 years or 15 years from now where all of a sudden you need to go out for a bond for 15 million bucks because you are that large of a shortfall. And I mean, when it comes to stats, yes, Councilmember Drago said you are entirely correct. Our median is higher than the median of other households. That's entirely correct. I could also look at, say, as an example, a house in Stillwater where their value is $533 and they're paying almost twice as much to their city than we are. The medians are one thing, but with comparables, because of the rate itself, you pay more for the same house in another city. West Lakeland, you pay less, except for the recent bond. So it comes down to me, are we in that happy middle place? I think we are. Does anyone like taxes? No. Do our constituents want services? Yes. So that's where I stand. Again, we're gonna have this discussion further in December 16th, and honestly, we want public feedback as well. The good, the bad, all of the above. That would be my 2 cents.
If my dad's watching, I'm just gonna apologize now, because he really hates property taxes. He just,
Sorry, Dad.
yeah, he's got that. So, I appreciate the idea of extending it, the decreasing the amount in the savings account and extending that debt out there. I think that some of the things that we've done in recent history, like I think the bond for this building was something in the $14 million range, even though we knew it was coming up. It really wasn't accounted for in any sort of savings, if you will. It was just paid for via bond, right? So we're paying for this building, just like you would a house over the course of however many years. And I guess I've seen too many of my friends and my cohorts, colleagues in other cities that have run into issues where and I'm just coming at it from an infrastructure standpoint. That's what I know. That's what I think about. And if we look at the amount of infrastructure that we have, I think that cliff can get higher if it's not taken care of appropriately at the time it, you know, the right fix at the, or the right road with the right fix at the right time, right? And so I believe in all those things. And I think this, and maybe I'm being a little conservative, but I'd rather have that in the bank than saying, oh, we tried to stretch it out, now we can't do that, so we had to add some more bonding to take care of that down the road. Or when we're continually adding infrastructure to our city with every development that comes in. And at the current rate, the residential housing in this city is primarily what we need to keep the operations running. And I think I've said this from when I first ran for mayor 5 years ago, was what we really need is a stronger commercial base, a different tax base to help balance out some of those operational costs within the city. And I think we're getting some businesses. So even the picture that we look at now, given future development, if there's commercial and business, it can change so that strategic, I mean, a lot of this is speculation, right? So, and I would rather speculate on the conservative side and hope that things turn better rather than thinking things will be great with housing and building and all that, and then not have it happen. So that's where I'm at right now. So I would like to talk more about these scenarios, and some of the questions I think are good. Questions that I didn't have that enlightened me to, you know, a different way of looking at things. So as far as the resolution we have on hand, I plan on supporting that. Councilmember Hurd.
One little follow-up, so I do wanna clarify that I don't think, again, looking at these projections, that I necessarily would say that that still isn't conservative with what we are doing. Or if it was less, again, I mean, if you look at the debt projections, the debt projections are going down to 23 million from 55 million. The infrastructure fund balance would go up to 8.5 million versus at the current amount shown up to 11 million. So if we do get in that situation, we've improved our debt load enough where if we do have to bond, we're not getting back to where we were today. We're still in a good financial position, right? We still have a good rating, so it's not that, and again, you know, so I'd even be cautious of saying we're trying to wrap the wound, because again, I think we're in a good financial position, but if we don't make this change, we're gonna get in trouble. And so I don't see it as being aggressive and risky. It's just maybe a little less conservative.
Right. I agree. I think one thing that we don't have is comparison. Sometimes you look at the, how do I make an analogy here on expenses of maintenance, right? I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about. Let's say we're taking care of our car. Oil changes and tire rotations and brakes, those all cost one thing, but when the computer chip goes out, all of a sudden it's a $5,000 deal, right? And maybe you compare those versus a car that's worth $20,000 and a car that you buy brand new and it's $50,000. I truly think if we had the GASB 34 information on the investment that the city has in its infrastructure and a projected cost of that infrastructure into the future, that would show a different picture than what you're thinking, because we don't have that. How much does the city have? I mean, we're talking about numbers that we don't have a comparison to as to the value that we're trying to take care of. Would you agree?
I don't know if I agree on that. Because to the
Do you have
example of the
so
cars.
hold on. I asked you if you have a number that you know that the city's system is valued at.
No,
Okay.
no.
But without that, then a number's just a number. It's not attributed to anything of a value. It's just a number.
Maybe to the car example. Because I agree, right? We want to be doing maintenance on our car, right?
Yeah.
That you budget for maintenance.
Yeah.
Now, in an ideal financial situation, for an individual who's making enough money, yeah, probably putting enough money away so you can just completely pay for a new car when that car is ready for replacement would be fantastic. But that's not what 99% of people do, right? They do their maintenance, and then they know that they're gonna have to take a loan when it comes time to purchase that new car. Now, they're able to push that loan off to 12 years, 13 years, 14 years versus 7 if they don't do any maintenance. So that's where that share or the savings comes in. And so I guess, and this was a question I asked as well about like the depreciation. I mean, if we're trying to fund 100% of the depreciation, which I realize when we're doing this, that's in today's dollars, it's gonna be different down the road. But we're not trying to fund 100% of these projects in the future. So trying to fund 100% of depreciation just doesn't quite make sense to me, right? We know we're gonna have a special assessment for it. We know that we're planning to have some bonding for it, and we're not saying we're gonna pay for it 100% cash.
Right.
So I'm glad that we're having this conversation. I'm glad that we're doing the financial planning, because I think maybe for me more than anything, it's just I don't have the data to show me otherwise that we can approach this slower. And if we do approach it slower, I don't have the data to show me that we're gonna be in a catastrophic situation. I shouldn't even say that. I don't have anything showing us that we're not gonna be in still a much better situation if we increase at a slower rate.
And conversely, I would say that I don't have the information that says we are being overly conservative or we're not gonna be a situation. I mean, we're sitting in the same spot on a different side of the boat. So, Councilmember Dragisich.
I think, there's a logical balance of setting enough money aside to keep our debt management, which we've talked a lot about, and, issuing debt to finance some portion of those improvements. It's matching benefactors and payers. So if we tax everybody today to build a new street, that's gonna last 50 years. People that paid for it, won't be the ones who benefit from it entirely. The new people that move in will benefit from it. So there's this balance between a reasonable amount of debt and a reasonable amount of cash to be paid. I think, finding that balance along with a balance of keeping our property taxes more affordable is a tightrope we have to try and walk in some way that makes sense. As I said, we have fairly high tax on our system right now in the city, our taxpayers. And so I think we have to be cognizant of that and try and find a reasonable balance.
Okay. Gonna call the question. Motion to approve resolution 2025 what was it, 060? Sorry.
Yes.
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 Approving 2026 proposed general fund budget, 2026 proposed property tax levy, and setting public hearing date for 2026 budget and 2026 property tax levy for Tuesday, December 16th, 2025 at 7 PM. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
All right, motion passes 3-2. Thank you. Council report. Councilmember Dragisich.
Nothing to report.
Councilmember Holtz.
I anticipate the mayor will probably do this as well and others, but it's not only thank you for Saturday. It was a great time, we had members of council setting up food trucks, members of councils getting the bouncy house. The mayor and myself were out setting stuff up the morning of, and Councilmember Dragisich tried to get the Air Force to come in. Didn't work, but, we all took steps to do it. And thank you all for doing that, but also thank you staff for showing up. You guys came, you brought your families, either yourself, your kids, a spouse. You guys came and showed up, and that also, I think, shows a value that you're invested in the city as well. So thank you for that. It is appreciated. Thank you to residents who came out, the many volunteers who helped with it. The band was fantastic. Food trucks that I did try were great. There were leftovers from my wife and kids, so it wasn't choice food that I picked, but food I got was good. So thank you for all those who attended.
And I have a couple things. Did receive a letter from the League of Minnesota Cities that senator who represents our district at the state legislature has been selected as a League of Minnesota Cities Legislator of Distinction for 2025. She represents the city, this area's interests overall in a very good manner. She's accessible for questions and comments. I know at least myself, and I'm sure if other council members reach out to her, she is the same. So just a little recognition to our Senator Seeberger here. I had a blast on Saturday. You know, I said a lot of thanks. Not a lot of people heard me say those when I was in front of the stage there, but thank you to everybody for their part in getting the fireworks guys set up, for the public works guys getting the stuff out in the street beforehand. Close off Washington County Sheriffs for being available and having the camera on hand. Administrator Miller to be able to take care of some of the band's requests and needs that they had at the time. That's appreciated. All the other council members for helping set up in different members. I'd like to recognize earlier in the consent agenda, the bouncy houses were donated by Kruger Tree Farm and Lake Elmo Bank. So a big thanks to them. I went over to say hi to Councilmember Hearn, and he was in mass chaos of kids bouncing around all over. He did look like he was having fun. And special thanks to the band Tight Fit. They were very easy to work with and a joy to talk to. And I thought a lot of people, we had kids from the ages of 5, maybe younger, up to people, I don't know how old, 80, whatever, dancing for the band. And we had former mayors, Susie Dunn, who was a mayor in 1988, Dave Morgan from 1984, and Dean Johnson, who was in the early 2000s, come and attend. So that was nice to see them. And I got to talk to a lot of people that, we just had the presenter here today that said she's lived her entire life in Lake Elmo. Friends' parents have been Lake Elmo residents for 58 years, and they really enjoyed it. So the fireworks were phenomenal. There's some pictures out on the website that we had. We had a photographer taking pictures, and so please scan through those, and maybe you're in one or two, I don't know. So, yeah, really enjoyed it. There's a lot of things to go around, and thought it was a great event. Councilmember Hearn.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is just, Councilmember Dragisich for even having the vision, I think, to kind of bring this up in the first place. I will be honest, I was a little concerned when we were a month out talking about this, but that was really good vision and leadership to think of that, and so I do appreciate it. And, obviously we have to have the vision, but then it was implemented, and I know the staff and council did a lot, so good job everyone on doing that.
Yeah, I mean, a second to all the thank yous for the staff and everybody who helped out. And then also thank you to Marty for hearing my concern about the wasp's nest at the pickleball courts at Lions Park. Made a few residents very happy, so appreciate that. Thank you.
Staff reports.
Well, I just will echo what everyone said. Without the staff, we wouldn't have been able to pull it off. So, department heads, as well as, please pass on our thanks to all the staff members that were there, because council's vision, and then you all had parts too. at the bouncy house, but it was great. Thank you.
Julie?
No report, thank you.
No report.
Hopa?
No report.
Chief?
Our annual fire department open house next Monday, the 22nd, 4 to 7, here at the fire station. We'll have plenty of things to keep people busy.
Bouncy
and,
house?
No bouncy houses. And then,
Are the, is the senior center doing their, what they do, Sherbert last year or
the
something?
fields are doing Dole Whip and mini donuts again for us.
Nice.
So, yeah, come by and get a snack.
All right. Director Powers?
The old water tower disappeared in 6 hours today, so if anybody got to see that, it's amazing what that company can come in and do. I've seen them work before. Very professional, kind. We took a lot of pictures, some videos, so Kathy will probably be putting that together, and we'll share that information at some point, so.
Fantastic. Mr. Stanley?
Just that 10th Street North is open again down by Oakland Junior High. It's been closed for the utility work down there, so
Is Hudson Boulevard currently closed by Inwood?
yep, Hudson Boulevard is currently closed for the lift station force main work.
What's the expectation on that? Under promise, over deliver.
Yeah.
We're talking 5 to 6 weeks originally, so we're probably 5 weeks out yet.
5 weeks out? Okay, thank you. Sarah?
No report.
All right, great. I think the only notable thing I really have on the future agenda that's not probably, so tomorrow night, the EDA's, or the committee for the fire hall's getting together to talk about the proposal we're sent in. And so on the agenda on the 7th, we will have the fire station RFP at the council meeting. And with that, we will adjourn the meeting for the evening. Thank you.